Well, hello students, computer programmers, computer scientists, and seekers of truths. In this video, I'd like to explain a little bit more and take the Corel GPS project one step further. And what we're going to do here is add two features to the corner class. The first feature that we're going to add is the ability to print out information. So you see here I've created two corner objects with variables C1 and C2. And after I created them, I can call system.out.println on the variable itself. Now, if you try this on your own code, you will find that it may not work. It will actually just print out some hexadecimal code. Okay, but on mine, if I compile and run, you see C1 has location Street 2, Avenue 1. The source is null. This is north, east, west, and south. Those variables are all set to true, at least by default. That's that way, right? North, west, east, and south are by default all open. The used variable is by default false. Okay, so what I would like you to do is create a toString function such that your corner class prints out the same information as mine. Okay, in this exact same format. The word location, a colon, a tab, parentheses, street, comma, avenue, close parentheses. The word source, colon, and this should either print out information about the source, or it should print out some information, or it should print out the word null. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. All right, and then here it should print out the abbreviation news, and then whether or not the north, east, west, and south corners are open, and then use whether that's true or false. Okay, so that's one thing that one new feature that I would like you to add to your code. Let me show you an example of when the source, when there is a source, what that should do. All right, so I've added some more code here. I've taken C1 and I've called set source on it. So, and I pass in C2. So that means the source of C1 is C2, and then I'm going to print out C1 again. Okay, just so that you can see this. Let's see here. Compile and then run. Okay, so the first time, the first print statement, we get location 2, 1, source null, true, true, true. The use is false. The second time that we run, that we print out, we get the location is still 2, 1, okay, because I'm still referring to corner C1. The source this time, and notice here, it doesn't print out the address, it doesn't print out everything about the source, it just prints out the street and avenue of the source, then true, 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 false. And again, I'm putting tabs after all of these colons here. Okay, so that's the first thing that I would like you to do. All right, the second thing I'd like you to do is a little bit more complex. It has to do with the object class. So let me pull up the object class here. Okay, so this is the document here, that the official Java document here for the queue. So keep in mind, we are going to be using a queue. Okay, and one of the things that a queue requires is an equals function. In other words, we're going to be searching the queue for certain corners, and we want to know if we found it or not. And there's going to be all of these objects that are floating around inside the queue. And one of the things that we need to know for sure, and we need to define for sure, is the equals method. Okay. Now the equals method is it's a Boolean method. It's named equals, and it takes in an object. Okay. So as far as our particular assignment is concerned, it's going to look somewhat like this. Okay. There's going to be a Boolean method, it's called equals, and it's going to take in an object called other. And I'll put a comment on here that that two corners are considered equal if their street and avenue are both equal to each other. Okay, so there might be other features of two corners that are different, like use or source, but as far as this project is concerned, two corners are considered equal if both their streets and their avenues are equal. Okay, now one of the things that'll be tricky here is that let me write this up here, kind of the way that most students write it. If I do something like if this dot street is not equal to other dot street, then we're going to return false. Okay, as an example, and there's going to be more to this than just that, more to this assignment than just this part. But if you'll see here that if we try to compile this, we end up getting an error. The error that we get here is that other here is an object. Okay, it's not a corner object. And so one thing we have to do is perform a cast. So we're going to create a new corner variable called cOther. Okay, and then we have to perform a cast in order changing the type of variable from an object into a corner. All right. And then from on here, instead of referring to other, we're going to be referring to cOther. And now at least this will compile, although it won't work correctly. Okay, but at least it will compile. Okay. So the reason we're doing this is that there are all kinds of problems if we were to start, and I'm going to clean this up just a little bit, that if we were to start doing things like if C1 is equal to C equals C2, right? The problem with this is really bad because we're not actually comparing the street and the avenue. We're comparing the memory addresses of C1 and C2. So even if they were identical, we would still get true. Even if they were different, even if the underlying data were the same, we may not get the statement to be true. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So now let's say for a second that I were to change corner 2 to have the exact same information as corner 1, right? They both have street 2, they both have avenue 1, and if I make this call, if these two corners are equal to each other, and I use the equal sign, let's just use this, a very simple debugging method here, all right? If they're equal, we're going to print yes, otherwise we're going to print no. And I'm going to compile, and then run. You see? And even though the information, the underlying information is identical, we end up getting the result printed no. What should happen, and here's what should happen. So I'm gonna finish writing my equals function correctly. I'm not gonna show it to you, but I'm gonna show you how it's going to work. All right, so this is how it should work. This is how it should work correctly. Okay, so if I go back here, and again, I've changed my equals function now to do the right thing. Okay, so I should be able to call instead c1.equals c2. Okay, I'm going to recompile and then rerun. You see that? So when I run this now, c1.equals c2 returns true, so I print yes. Okay, so what the equals function allows us to do is compare the underlying data of the object rather than the memory location of the object. Okay, so I'd like you to do two things in this assignment. One is to create the toString method, and two is to finish writing that equals function and test it out and make sure that it works. All right, so and this is a key principle of programming is that we're going to spend a lot of time on this basic class, this foundational class, okay? Because if any bugs occur in here, nothing else will work, okay? So we're going to just give this a lot of attention and thought, debug it carefully, and then everything else will be able to flow smoothly. As always, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.